Should you need to take a safety course and pass 2 background checks to purchase a gun? Or are any limits on gun ownership unconstitutional? This November, Oregonians will decide how much they're willing to regulate gun ownership. First, some facts. According to estimates, about a third to half of Oregon's 1.6 million households have at least one gun in the home. Gun purchases in the state peaked in 2020 and have stayed higher than in recent years. Nearly 600 people in Oregon died by gun in 2020. Nearly 80% of the people lost died by suicide, followed by homicide and accidents. Both nationally and in Oregon, gun deaths are rising, especially among people who own guns. And as mass shootings have become more frequent, national and statewide polls suggest a growing majority think gun laws should be stricter. Yet, at the same time, many states and the U.S. Supreme Court are easing restrictions. Currently in Oregon, a background check is required to purchase a gun, though you can technically buy a gun before the check is completed. And there are red flag laws that allow guns to be removed from people considered a danger to themselves or others. But there are currently no permits required to purchase a gun and few limits on the types of guns or ammunition you can own in the state. In November, Oregon voters will decide whether to create new state gun laws. Measure 114 has 2 main components. First, to buy a gun, a person would need to get a new permit from a local law enforcement agency, requiring a criminal background check and the successful completion of a gun safety course. The new background check to get a permit would be in addition to the one already required to purchase a gun. Safety courses would teach safe storage and handling and how suicide and homicide affect communities. The permit would be per person, not per gun, and permits would be good for 5 years. Official estimates say it's unclear if permit fees would ultimately cover the cost of the measure. Second, any magazine capable of holding more than 10 rounds of ammunition would be banned. This would only apply going forward. People who currently own such magazines would be able to keep them, though not use them. Guns that have built-in magazines holding more than 10 rounds would have to be modified in order to be legally transported or used. Supporters of the measure compare the proposal to what's required to drive a car. They say needing a driver's license doesn't infringe on a person's right to travel, and that this new permitting system is a common-sense way to reduce gun violence. Research shows that tighter gun laws reduce homicide and suicide rates. Following Connecticut's implementation of a very similar licensing law, the state's firearm homicide rate declined 40%, and the firearm suicide rate declined 15.4%. Opponents say the measure would trample on the Second Amendment right to bear arms. They say the proposed rules are too vague and subject to abuse, and that law enforcement agencies have neither the capacity nor the cash to be in charge of issuing permits. They worry that certain guns capable of holding more than 10 rounds would be effectively banned. And they say it will be impossible to prove whether a person acquired a high-capacity magazine before or after the ban. Oregon is the only state to have a measure that would tighten gun laws on the ballot this year. That puts Oregon voters squarely at the center of one of the most contentious issues of our time.
Stay informed on important issues facing Oregon and Southwest Washington thanks to member support. You can find more election coverage and join OPB as a sustaining member at opb.org.